So if we can connect to God and receive divine truth, does it come through as a knowing or a feeling or an inspiration or an awareness, or how does it show up for you?
You've seen me when I'm communicating with you. It's like a packet of information comes to me and it's just a blah, 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 and I just say it all out. Does that make sense? There's no thought in the process. It's just packets of information, pictures.
Like a flow.
And it's like a flow, constant flow. Now, as you connect to God more and more and more, that flow will increase in its intensity until when you become at one with God. And from that moment on, you still have all of your own creations. But any time you remain in inspiration and start talking about God's truth, all of a sudden you can actually feel the flow of God's love flowing through you and then out. And a lot of times you're not even really conscious. You know what you're saying, but it's very rapid. And it's very hard, in fact, for me at times to slow myself down enough for you to grasp what I'm trying to say, because there's just so much information coming. And when you get at one with God, it's like whole packets of information come to you, and then it's a matter of you spending, like a whole packet can come to you in a second or so, and you might spend an hour speaking that packet to a group of people on earth. Because it happened in a second, in an instant, coming to you, but there's so much involved with it that it just flows out if you flows out until you're done, sort of thing.
Can you ask God to help you with your sense of humour?
Quite often I've thought I've lost my sense of humour, but that's because of the emotions that are there present anyway. A lot of times our sense of humour is based around our emotional injuries and what we want other people to perceive. And so we just need to allow ourselves to work, like all of these things, work through the desires and emotions that we have that are blocking us up, and everything will flow very freely. You will not be your true self until you're at one with God. And even then, you won't be your true self in terms of amalgamated soul until you're at one with your soulmate, at one with God. Right? And so because of that, there's a lot of progression to make. But once you hit the state of at-one-ment with God, from then on all the pain you experience in the process of growth no longer exists. So after that point is a very joyous point, obviously. And that's where most people struggle. They struggle in the step from getting, usually most of us begin, like I began in the hells in this life. So most of us begin in the hells in this life because of the damage that's been done by our parents and our environment to us. We begin in the hells and we slowly progress as we release emotions, ask for divine love, soul expands and so forth, and we progress until we make that transition into at-one-ment with God. Now when you make that transition, that's the time when you become the inspired one, in the sense of, at the moment, many times people on earth are actually being inspired by spirits who are in a higher state than themselves. But when you become at one with God, you have this direct connection with God through inspiration, which means that you can transmit packets of information to large numbers of people through the same methods that God transmits to you. And you can also do things that you couldn't do before. And that's the only way that I began healing in the first century. So people say, oh, but you were a healer then, or you did this then or that then. No, everything that I did then was dependent upon this connection with God. So it was really God choosing to do it through me because I had longed for God to get to myself, to get into the condition where God could do that through me. And in the Life Elysian, there's a little portion that quite affects me because it actually describes the exact process I went through in the first century. And that is, I was reading from the book of Isaiah, and in the book of Isaiah in the Bible, there's a section that talks about becoming willing to have God send you to others, like being willing to be a messenger. And there's a portion that goes, God was asking the world, who is there ready that I can send? And when I felt about that, you know, I wanted it to be me. And you at some point have that same feeling.
I feel that sometimes. I just don't feel I'm ready.
Yeah. And then as that feeling enters you, that pulls your soul towards God. And as it pulls your soul towards God, God's love enters you more, you get to the condition where God can send you, and for there not to be any damage through your message that you're teaching. Unfortunately, on the earth today, many of people are thinking they're connecting to God, but they're actually connecting to a spirit who's not anywhere near even the condition of connecting to God. And as a result of that, a lot of the untruth that's coming through them just continues to damage the world and create more mud on the world. You know, it creates more murkiness here rather than actually freeing up the truth. So my suggestion to you is just develop this really passionate, strong longing inside of your soul to have God connect with you and be in this place with God that you can choose to be. And God wants this connection with all of you, not just with one person. So let yourself connect with God in this manner, and all of you then become God's messengers in all different ways as a result of that connection. So that's
when you're in that place, what does it feel like?
Well, all I can describe at the moment are my memories of that place, because I'm not yet back into that condition, and so my memories of that place are often like full of grief for me, because I'm still what I'm processing through at the moment is all the grief about the loss of that place. Does that make sense? So, but my memories of that place are, if you can imagine yourself, that no matter what anyone else around you is doing, thinking or saying, you know everything they're doing, thinking and saying, and every emotional reason why they're doing it in any interaction, but you don't feel any damage from it. So in an audience like this, when you're at one with God, if you were standing up the front of an audience like yourselves, at one with God, you can feel every single feeling the audience, every single member of the audience has about you. You can also feel every single feeling the audience has or thought the audience has about you. While you're talking in front of the audience, you're actually processing all of this information. All this information is coming at you, right?
I've noticed that you can do that already to quite a big extent.
Yes, but still not in a sense where it doesn't affect me, because at the moment I can still, so whenever you as an audience or some of you as an audience project condescension at me, I feel that, and I have to allow that emotion to pass through me, and it has an emotional response in me of grief, and sometimes I've got to go away and process that. And whenever people feel towards me, there's lots of different emotions I feel in any one audience. Do
you feel our love when we send that to you?
Sure I do, of course.
That's good.
But can I just bear in mind with love that when your soul is full of grief about things, it's very, very hard for you to feel loved. Does that make sense to everyone? Because what happens is it's like love is the water off the duck's back, and all of the other emotions are the ones that hit you and hurt. Does that make sense? But as you get closer and closer to a one-ment with God, the love is the emotion that you absorb, and the other emotions are the ones that are automatically off the duck's back. You know what I mean? So in other words, you don't absorb them anymore. They pass through you still. It's not like you're rejecting them. It passes through you. You still don't have judgment about them or anything like that, but they pass through you. But the love-based emotion remains with you. And so if you can imagine that state all the time, so it's 24/7 in that state, then that's partly what it's like to be at one with God. And then have, even more importantly than that, just imagine yourself being in this state with God, where you know you are permanently connected to God. Every single moment that you're awake and asleep, you can feel God's love flowing through you. Can you imagine what that's like? It's like you know you're loved at every single moment, no matter what is happening around you. It doesn't matter what is happening around you, you're loved every single moment. Not that you imagine you're loved, you actually feel that love passing through you from God every single moment. So you can walk around without any fear at all. Remember when we had the fear processing stuff that we were talking about? I said, can you try to imagine what your life is like without fear? Just that one aspect of being at one with God is just an amazing thing to think about. to have your life without any fear at all. That means no fear of saying exactly what you know to be true, because you know, firstly, that everything you say is going to be loving. Secondly, no fear that of any single person under any circumstances in any situation. They can be yelling at you, screaming at you, holding a knife at your throat, putting a gun at your head, and you still have no fear. If you can imagine being in that place, not because you've intellectually manufactured it, but because you feel it all the time. So these are all parts of being at one with God. God doesn't feel fear. God constantly has this love flowing. You're in constant state of bliss no matter what occurs. You feel the barrage of emotions coming from the world, but you're not in the world. And that's why I said the words in the first century that a lot of people have misused, that you're in the world but not of the world. Because you've got this barrage of emotions coming to you from the world that normally would affect you immensely, that you'd either be trying to avoid, trying to run away with, or going for, or depends whether your addiction's in play or whatever. But none of those things are in play. You're not of the world in the sense that none of these things actually impact on your life ever, no matter what happens. And when you're walking around in that space, every single person around you feels that and knows that from you. Right? Whether some get angry because of it, others are sad because of it, others are happy because of it, but they all know. And every spirit you meet is either jealous of you or happy for you. Right? Jealous in the sense that they're not in the same place, or happy for you because they, are in the same place and can feel that. So it's just and this is a part of growing your faith. A part of growing your faith is doing exactly what every single person in history who have ever extended humanity in some way had to do. And what they had to do at some point is imagine. Just imagine, whatever it is. They had to imagine what a plane looked like. They had to imagine what landing on the moon might be like. They had to imagine, nobody had ever done it before. So they had to imagine it. And they had to imagine it, and they used their imagination to grow their faith. Remember, faith is based on truth and actual events, actual evidence. So they got all this actual evidence that they could get. They grasped all that. But in the end, they had to put it all together and imagine what that must be like. And in a way, that's what we need to do. If you're going to continue on the divine love path, there will be so much obstacle at some point in your life, so many problems, so many issues with it, that in the end it's going to be just your passion for God that gets you through it all. Just your passion for God, that's all. Nothing else is going to get you through it all. You can have a love of a partner, but what if that partner hates your guts part the way through this process? That's not going to get you through dealing with your stuff, is it? And what if, you've got all these friends, but what if all your friends desert you through the process? Then where are you going to be if you don't actually have this passion for God? In the end, the only thing that is going to get you through this process is your passion for God. Now, your passion for truth is a part of that, is a part of your passion for God, but it's not going to get you through the process. Many of us have had a passion for truth in our lives, but has it actually changed our life? Well, a lot of times we don't even know what's true and what's not true within ourselves half the time because of our emotional state. So even the passion for truth isn't always going to get us there. But our passion for God, our desire for God, is what in the end is going to lead us home. And in the first century, I just learnt to have the passion for God. And that passion in this century has been with me all my life. It's an intrinsic part of what it feels like to be an intrinsic part of me.
So